Hello, it's Michael Gray. It is September 6th, I believe, 7th, I don't know, man. Like Labor Day 2020, in the middle of the coronavirus. I'm on a bicycle. This is where I'm at, Bethel Trails. This is my bicycle setup. Boom. And been on this trail for about, I don't know, 45 minutes. The topic of today's video, haven't made a video in a while, it's going to be on a couple of things. One of them is it's primarily on loneliness. The reason I'm making this video is because a friend of mine contacted me this morning and had some questions. She's in a little bit of a situation, and I am trying to give her some of my advice, leadership, counsel. I don't know if it's beneficial. I don't know if it's harmful. Hopefully, it is puts a new light on ways that she's thinking, possibly inefficient or incorrect or irrational ways. So some of the things that are going to be in this video are loneliness, lack, scarcity, urgency, uh, inner conflict of what we say we're going to do and what we actually do, and how this changes from minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, week to week, month to month. It talks about goals, goal setting, and the component of ourselves that actually sets these things and can follow through with it, and the reason that there's contradictions in behaviors and thoughts and what we say, what we do. Incongruence would be the word for that. And let's see, what are some of the other things? I don't know, that's enough to get us started here. So I just wanted to make a portion of this video while I was riding on this bike trail on my bike, and I actually started it a little while ago, and it was kind of a complex part of the trail, and I ran over a snake, and so I think I'm gonna stop up here in a little bit so that it's not so bumpy and maybe better sound quality for you. All right, but for what it's worth, if you don't watch any further from here, mend yourself, move, educate, nourish, and decompress every day. All right, thanks. See you in a second. All right, so I guess first what we should do is tackle the concept, or my concept, of what is loneliness. And to me, loneliness is just a lack of feeling of connection, lack of uh, feeling of friendship, lack of feeling of continuity of narrative in your life that you wish was different. And I have had extreme loneliness in my lifetime, and or at least I have felt that way. And just in the past sentence or two, I've said feeling, 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 feeling. So it is an emotion. It's a visceral sensation, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is a real phenomenon, and that is an actual thing. So just because something causes an emotion in you, or uh, triggers a thought process to cascade in your mind, maybe one that has a lot of neural connections and from when you were a child. And now that you're an older adult, all of these things just kind of flow together just as they have your entire life. But that doesn't mean that they're actual physical phenomenons. So let me give you some examples of when I felt lack. I felt lack when I was married for 10 years and then I got a divorce, and I was living in went from a huge, beautiful house that I built to a small apartment, little duplex, about 400 square feet with uh, tan paneling, or brown paneling, that I just utterly despise, brown paneling. And it was me in one side of the duplex and about 15 Mexicans in the other 400 square feet next to me. And I don't have anything against Mexicans. I love Mexicans, and some of my best friends are from Mexico. I played a lot of pool with people from Mexico. but the fact that there were so many in the small space was a little distressing just from the noise factor, but it wasn't too bad. But so anyway, so I found myself in the middle of nursing school on my own volition in this little apartment, divorced, going through another relationship that I had started in nursing school, and that one was failing. And then September 11th happened, and the stress of everything was just overwhelming. And I remember feeling at some point a sense of overwhelming loneliness and despair. And I was telling somebody yesterday that after going through that period of my life, and then I started dating someone, and the first night that she spent the night over at my apartment, and we were laying in my bed, and her head was on my shoulder, that that is when I realized the severity of the loneliness that I had in my life, and the way that I felt, and the just the emotional just feeling of lacking that and needing it so much. It was quite overwhelming, and I still kind of get chills, and it was 20 something years ago, and and I still remember that feeling of her head on my shoulder, and that just like being like the greatest of moments for me at that period. Um, so anyway, today, right now, I am on a bike ride. This is my bicycle, and the question is, am I lonely now? Right now, I'm married, and when and my wife will not come on this trail with me because of snakes, which is reasonable since I just ran over one. Um, it's just not her thing, and I knew that this was not her thing when we got married. We had enough time before we got married for me to know what it is that she liked to do and what it is that she didn't like to do, and for me to try and change her into doing these things with me would have been unrealistic and unachievable. So I made the decision to still get married, but just understand that there are going to be some points in my life that I'm going to be doing things by myself, or I'm going to have to find other social outlets to people to do them with. Um, and I'm okay with that. I've made that decision. There's enough value in the other areas of the relationship that it's okay for me to not have everything from one person, because that would be unrealistic. There's very few scenarios, and I'm not saying that there's none, but there's very few people that have relationships like that. And then there's some people that would never want something like that. So there's different strokes for different folks. Now my preference would be for her to be out here with me. I've been in relationships before, and they would do these things, and it used to be on my checklist of uh, am I going to date this person, is, like, will she wear a hat backwards? Will she get on a bicycle? Will she go to the gym with me and be and spot me when I'm doing bench presses? And will she go on hikes and this type of thing? And I'm not in that situation right now, and I'm okay with that. But that doesn't make me lonely out here on this bike ride, because I've figured some things out. One is that I was married 10 years from 18 to 28. And looking back on it, even then, you could say, well, was I lonely? I was in a relationship, I was married, uh, I got divorced. Did I get divorced because of loneliness? I don't think so. I got divorced because well, we won't go into all of those, reasons, but looking back at it, it was the right thing to do. I came across a meme this morning, and it was a cartoon picture of a man on his knee with the ring, proposing to his future bride, saying, "Will you marry me for the next 1 to 5 years?" And she said, "Oh my God, yes." And that's kind of been my experience in relationships ever since my first marriage. My first marriage lasted 10 years, and actually, it probably should have only lasted 5 years. I tried to dissolve it after 5 years, and I just didn't have I didn't have the heart, strength, willpower, knowledge, and the capability to do it at that time. But I should have done it earlier. It would have been better for her, and it would have been better for me. Um, but as far as the loneliness and how that changed is that once you go through periods of loneliness, and once you start doing introspective work and just analysis on yourself and figuring out different emotional tools and processes to use when you have certain types of emotions, certain types of feelings, then what occurs is that you realize that you can get through the tough ones. And I'm a hospice nurse, so I see tough emotional situations on a daily basis. And that's another thing. When you put yourself in difficult situations, then the more difficult situations you put yourself in, the more um, intentional self-suffering that you choose, either through bike rides or hiking or working out or fasting or just achieving goals that are difficult. Then you gain confidence in yourself and your ability to do what it is that you say you're going to do, the congruence part. And then you also realize when all of these less uh, difficult things come up, these less challenging, the lesser suffering events happen, then they're not as big of a deal, and you know that you're going to be able to get through them. So that's why you should, on a daily basis or at least weekly, do some physical self-suffering, whether or not that's hikes, bikes, whatever it is. Just moving yourself and straining or stressing your body in a eustress type of way, not a distress type of way. Uh, so next is my friend instant messaged me, and she asked for some advice, and she said that basically she is in a quasi electronic long distance relationship with somebody that lives in Europe, thousands of miles away. And she's met her family or his family, and they talked all the time, and there was a strong connection, and he loves her, and they want to be together, but they're so far away, and they haven't actually met in person, but they've established this relationship and this bond, and they really click. And what I thought about her situation, and basically she has no situation. What she has is a pen pal. What she has is um, an electronic connection with another human on the other side of the planet, which is perfectly fine. I've got no problem with that. Some of the challenges with that is if you have unrealistic goals, if you have an irrational expectation, then this may set you up for feelings of failure and loneliness and lack of control in your situation and these types of things, you know. And I said there's, 7 billion people or however many people on the planet. Uh, Choose a different one. Choose one that's closer. If this was a business and you were in a relationship with somebody, would you want your partner local? Would you want your partner vocal? Would you want your partner in proximity to you so you can reach out and touch them and shake their hand and slap their ass or whatever it is that you want to do in this business relationship? And, the answer to that is that's what it's about. Uh, and even if the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow comes and the lottery comes and you're going to pick all your family and friends up and move them to Europe, or he's going to pick all his family and friends up and move over here. I mean, just logistically, the chance of it working is not it's just not going to happen. It's not, it might not happen. It's probably not going to happen. I know it's just not right for me to be thinking about that, and it's probably not going to happen, and I'm probably wasting my time. Yeah, you're wasting your time, and and time is the most valuable asset that you have. You have limited time amongst all of the other things that you have limitations of. You don't have lack of time, you have limited time. So it is important that even if you're getting some value from this pen pal relationship, electronic pen pal relationship, and you have the thing is that if you're spending time with this person, that means you're not in a position to be spending time and using that energy trying to find another mate if that's what your goal is. This is not going to happen with this guy. So let him know that you appreciate the connection that you have. You appreciate the attention that both of you have given to each other. You value him as another human being on the side of the planet. You have enjoyed meeting his parents. You are totally willing to keep open the communication for random, spontaneous, uh, novel connections. And then the novelty is the other part is that, she's like, well, he's contacting me less now, that now that we're kind of realizing that this probably isn't going to work. Well, yeah, that's reasonable that he does that. And one reason is because that the novelty is wearing off and the excitement of it is wearing off. And this happens in an actual relationship of someone that you meet that's in your local area that you actually spend physical time with. This waning of the novelty occurs. So if it's occurring there, it doesn't mean that something is going wrong. It just means that what is supposed to be happening is happening. uh, the novelty is very short termed. The reason people have affairs is, especially men, is because what they're seeking is the novelty of whatever, the newness, the intrigue of whatever is behind box number one or box number two or box number three. So uh, just to be aware of the concept of novelty seeking and the and how that goes away is important. That way you have more realistic expectations of what it is that's going to occur in the near future. So the question is, she feels lack, she feels a little bit of frustration that she is not in this long-term relationship that she longs to be in, and the scarcity of available partners, and the fear that maybe this guy was the one and he was the last option. So, number one, you're born alone and you die alone. And you may have some companionship in the middle, and you will definitely have some times where you are alone, but alone is okay. One of my all-time favorite videos on this topic is called Self Love and Aloneness by Bentino Massaro. And basically, what he talks about is, he has many good conversations on this topic. But one is that relationship is like if you have somebody, uh, let's say it's not a turd, it's a tree bark. Well, let's just say that this is the person that you're in a relationship with. And you see how my hand is open? They are there, they are present, they're in my hand, they're in my proximity. I can touch them, but I cannot hold them, because if I do, this is what happens. You cannot keep somebody that does not want to be there. This is how it has to be at all times. They have to be able to get up and leave at any point. That doesn't mean that you want them to. It doesn't mean that you expect them to. It doesn't mean that you hope, that you pray that they don't. You can pray that they don't if that's what you want. That may or may not help. But it's important to know that it's important that the other person feels that they're not constricted in the relationship, that they're not limited, and that this relationship is a positive aspect to their overall timeline in their life, and that there's value in that. Um, there is no lack, there is no scarcity, and there really is no loneliness. So another thing that I was telling her is that I was listening to a YouTube video by Lex Friedman that came up yesterday, and cannot remember. I cannot remember the name of the app, but the lady that he was interviewing created an app on loneliness. So it was a 3 hour video talking about loneliness, talking about her experience with loneliness. She had a good friend, and they were both about 30, and he got hit by a car and he died. And after that, she felt this profound loneliness. And they talk about how the feeling of loneliness, the emotion of loneliness, the situation of loneliness causes more health issues, more cortisol, chronic high cortisol, which leads to heart disease and stroke and all of these things. That the loneliness is just as bad as obesity as far as the epidemic of poor health. And how can we overcome that? So she created an app that's like an artificial intelligence app to kind of like that gives you some companionship. And they use things like loneliness profiles, which are kind of like personality profiles or that kind of thing. And then like, you know, after using this app, did you feel less lonely? Do you feel less lonely than you did a week ago? And this kind of thing. And I haven't even looked at the app yet, but you know, it's about it learns your behavior and communicates with you, talks to you, whatever. You know, kind of like that movie. I think Her was the name of it. Where the guy falls in love with this artificial intelligence girlfriend. She probably breaks his heart too. I can't even remember the premise of the movie, but that would seem like a good storyline. Uh, so anyway, that's kind of worth looking into. But the last thing that I told her is that Rich Cooper and Rollo Tomasi. Rich Cooper is Entrepreneurs in Cars. Look him up on YouTube. Rollo Tomasi is The Rational Male. And then David Data, The Way of the Superior Man. I recommended that she read those two books from Rollo and from David Data, as well as Albert Ellis, Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy, and the title of that is How to Make Yourself Happy and Remarkably Less Disturbable. And if I were to recommend anybody read 3 books on this topic of loneliness and this topic of relationships, that those would be the 3 books. And even though she's a female, and The Rational Male and The Way of the Superior Man are male-centric, male-focused, that there's still a lot of value as far as from a relationship, from a female's perspective, understanding what the male perspective is, understanding the difference between beta male and alpha male, understanding the difference between somebody that's going to be needy and that somebody that's going to add value, understanding the difference between somebody that is going to be mutually independent and uplifting to you, or codependent and bring you down and to be needy. So it's important that that she can see these things and what the alpha male or the higher value male is going to be, and what he's going to be expected, and where some of the pitfalls and failures are in relationships that that aren't successful in those ways, and give you a more rational way of looking at things, especially the rational emotive behavioral therapy, and the way to kind of just maximize your previous irrational thought patterns and narratives that you have in your head, and to question those and to create more rational patterns, and to actually sit down and analyze those things. You know, I recommend having a book, and every time you feel emotionally disturbed, you write what the event was, and then at the end of the week you're going to have 40 or 50 just events, little sentences or a paragraph of what happened, and then you can sit down at your own convenience, and then you can say, you know what, well, I felt this way. What are the reasons I felt this way? What is it that happened? What are the continuity and the narratives of these situations that occur? And then what would be a more rational way of feeling or of seeing, perceiving these events that happen on a chronic basis? Because usually it's just 40 or 50 things, 40 or 50 narratives that you have in your head. You don't even realize what the irrational thoughts are, but you've been thinking this way your entire life, which makes you feel a certain way, which makes you act a certain way to help relieve those uncomfortable feelings. So, and then finally, as far as the loneliness, yeah, I think that one of the best concepts that I've personally come up with, and I haven't heard this anywhere else before, I'm sure it's not original, it's very hard to come up with an original thought, but is that we are each two people, a minimum of two people. But let's just say, for instance, I am two people, you are two people. Let's just say your first name is Susan and your middle name is Marianne. Susan Marianne Smith. So Susan is the person that sets goals, tells herself she's going to do things. I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to stop hanging around toxic people. I'm going to stop smoking cigarettes. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get to sleep early and not stay up late looking at Facebook all night long and limiting my sleep so that I have a bad day the next day. All of these things. Susan is the rational person that makes good decisions and has good goals, and that is going to become the best version of herself. She is the self-excellence seeking part of the human being. And then we can say Marianne is the person that has all of the memories of the emotional trauma, all of the that's happened throughout her entire life since she was an infant, all of the neural connections that have built up over time of the behaviors, the self-soothing, the escapism, the safety mechanisms to try and ward off the evils and the pains of the world, and the hunger and the fear and the worry and the anxiety and the agitation and the distress and the sadness, all of these things, the boredom. It's blast, BLASST, bored, lonely, angry, sad, stressed, tired. This is what Marianne is trying to fix. What's going on, guys? Hello. Where's your water bottles?
I know, I need more.
All right. Oh my God. Oh, you're still there. All right, cool. So, um, so anyway, so let's just say Susan, Marianne. I can't even remember what the name was after watching those bikers. So let's just say Susan is the one that's seeking excellence and longevity and all of the goals, and then Marianne is the self-soothing. So you can look at a person's body, you can look at a person's function, you can look at a person's history, and the body is the biggest indicator of what historically they have been doing for the last couple of years. And you can see who is in control of that person. Is it Susan or is it Marianne? If they are excessively overweight, if they have metabolic syndrome, if they have biscuit poisoning, look at my other videos and look up the video on biscuit poisoning. It's one of my favorite. If they're biscuit poisoning, Marianne is the leader of that human being. If there are addictions, food addictions, alcohol addictions, drug addictions, smoking addictions, smoking addiction is physiological, but it is also psychological. Most people smoke because of the behavior and the anti-anxiety effects, because of Marianne gets soothed by the cigarettes or by the vapor pens. So anyway, you can tell the amount of out of shapeness a person has, the amount of distress that they have in their physical body and their mind, is because one of the two of these has a louder voice. So the goal is to realize that you have a Susan and a Marianne within you. And then you have to start figuring out who is it that's making these decisions at any point in time. And those decisions may change in the morning when you haven't had a lot of distress and you haven't had a lot of things build up throughout the day of agitation and anxiety and stress and sadness and worry and frustration and fear and exhaustion, all of this other stuff. Hunger is bullshit too. You don't have to eat, at least not every 2 hours, maybe every 2 days, but that's a whole nother topic. So anyway, when you get really advanced, then Susan will understand that concept. Just, I'm not even going to go into that right now. But anyway, so the goal is to acknowledge who is it that's making these decisions? Who is it that's making the most decisions? How many times are you in conflict with what it is that you say you're going to do and what it is that you actually do? And that may change from the morning to the night. So if in the morning you tell yourself you're going to eat healthy and then and go work out when you get home, and then when you get home you eat the pizza and the shit, and you go lay down in the bed and you pull the covers up and you turn the air conditioner down to get super comfortable, and you pull the covers up over your neck and you're feeding yourself ice cream and pizza and chocolate covered pretzels, and then you feel a little bad about it. Why do you feel bad about it? You feel bad about it because Susan's going, hello, hello, can I talk for a second? And you're like, no, 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 Susan, you shut up. Marianne, strong. What you have to do is you have to make Susan strong. You have to build your inner Susan, and it doesn't have to be much. Let's just say the super out of shape, super out of work, somebody that really doesn't even have any goals written down. No 1 month goal, 1 week goal, 6 month goal, 2 year goal, 5 year goal. Susan, let's just say that person really hasn't even attempted those things, and they're super out of weight. They're 40% body fat and they eat like shit all the time, and they don't have any discipline. And then every now and then they say, oh, I'm going to start working out, and they go for a walk around the corner and they eat a salad and put a bunch of ranch dressing. That person is super Marianne. Then how do you become less Mariannish? Well, you do this by awareness, observation, analysis, putting in work, journaling. You need to journal. You need to write these things down whenever you're feeling emotionally distressed. You need to write the situation down. What is that you're feeling? You don't have to analyze it right then, but at some point you have to figure it out. Then you have to become more rational about it. You have to shine the light on it. When you shine the light on it, let's just say the person that is 40% body fat and super out of shape, and a lot of emotional distress and a lot of self-soothing, and that person, let's just say they're 80% Marianne and 20% Susan. Well, when you shine the light on it and you start journaling and you start doing some education, you start doing some research on yourself. Instead of watching TV, you watch yourself. Instead of learning about the Kevorkian twins, you learn about yourself. Instead of, just spend time on yourself. And then when it becomes 51% Susan and 49% Marianne, then you can actually get out of the bed. Then you can actually get on the bike ride. Then you can actually do some fasting. Then you can actually watch less TV and put the remote down and do some reading and do some research. Then you can actually start eating healthy. Then you can actually become more prepared. Then you can actually have less chaos in your life. Then you can actually start limiting your exposure to stress. Then you can actually start sleeping more. Then you can actually start choosing your wheels instead of letting your wheels choose you, where I'm on a bicycle instead of the future me being on a walker with little tennis balls, or a rollator walker with a little seat, or a wheelchair. I'm choosing this because for me it's Michael versus Gary Jr. Gary Jr. is the self-soothing me that I talk to myself all the time. And whenever you realize this, then you realize that, you know what? You're never going to be lonely. You cannot be lonely because there's two of you. There's two of you. So if you're feeling lonely, talk to yourself. Say, Michael Jr. is going to talk to Gary Jr. Michael's going to talk to Gary Jr. this morning. And Michael's going to say, you know what? Today, instead of going to the pool hall, instead of sitting in bed, instead of going and order that pizza and that cheese dip and eat those Cheetos, today we're going to fast just a little bit longer. We're going to skip breakfast and we're even going to skip lunch. We might even skip the snowball. We might even skip the icy. We may just drink only water today. We may achieve some of these goals because Michael has 51% of the stock. Michael is in charge of this boat. Michael is in charge of this rig. So, Marianne, you need to pull your pants up or you need to kick Marianne in the butt sack. And Susan, take care of your business. All right. Happy Labor Day. Man yourself. Move, educate, nurse, decompress. Bye.